I want to talk about voice disorders and in particular abuse-based disorders. The etiology or the cause for these disorders is some kind of vocal abuse. Now, doesn't always have to be intentional, like I'm going out and yelling and I know what I'm doing and it's bad. Sometimes you have allergies, you're coughing for a variety of other reasons. Well, that's still going to fall into that realm of abuse. The three disorders I'm going to talk about are laryngitis, vocal nodules, and vocal polyps. Laryngitis, it has that itis suffix to it, some kind of inflammation. This itis is going to be attached to the larynx, so we get laryngitis. So we have an inflammation of the membranes of the larynx. It could be caused by a cold, allergies, or straight vocal abuse, and that is going back to what I said of screaming or really using your voice in a harsh way. Sometimes it's vocal habits that you've gotten by with, but maybe if you're starting to use your voice really heavily, they get very taxing, and we put that in the realm of vocal abuse too. Your voice sounds hoarse when you have laryngitis, and it looks like this. So here's laryngitis. Normally, we'd want to see the larynx have nice sort of white tissue on the vocal folds themselves. We wouldn't want to see this much red and kind of angry color on there. And when this person tries to phonate, you can see the vocal folds don't come together fully. They don't adduct. We can see all this air is leaking out between the vocal folds. And so you're not going to get really much sound. You get a lot of air coming out. And you can see those vocal folds just aren't coming together. So that's laryngitis. Now let's talk about vocal nodules. And if you saw the movie Pitch Perfect, they made a big deal about vocal nodules. And there were a lot of dramatic moments in there. And when I do this class live, people will send gifts to me from Pitch Perfect, and I'll get to enjoy that. What are vocal nodules or nodes? These are small bumps that develop on the vocal folds. And these bumps are kind of like if you've ever worked with a tool with a handle on it and it is irritating to your hands, it kind of builds up and you get this sort of callus on there. Well, these nodules are sort of like that. And they develop because the vocal folds are coming together with a lot of force. And we see these a lot in children or adults who scream, cheerleaders, so they're what are called heavy voice users, and singers who are demanding a lot of their instrument. And so you need to make sure that that motion is really efficient. Otherwise, the force could come together and cause these nodules to develop instead. These are usually bilateral, meaning they occur on both vocal folds, right and left. And the voice sounds breathy or hoarse. It's breathy because the vocal folds aren't coming together all the way, so you hear a lot of air leaking out. It can be hoarse as people try to compensate for that by working super hard to get the vocal folds to close or adduct. Vocal rest usually clears up these nodules. But here's the rub. People who get vocal nodules are generally heavy voice users. And now you're going to tell them, we need you not to use your voice for 6 weeks. That's challenging. And it's really challenging when you have to tell a 5-year-old, I need you not to use your voice. I want you to turn your voice off for a while. That's hard for little kids to do, especially when they don't have quite as many other modalities to communicate. But vocal rest will clear out these nodules. Now, they don't hurt, and some of the other pathologies we're going to look at, people talk about how those are painful. Nodules, not so much painful. The other thing why we need to get some rest, but also some voice therapy in there, is that if the abusive behaviors come back, a lot of times so do the nodules. So we're going to have to change the way somebody produces their voice. And so therapies, in addition to healthy production, is also going to be aimed at decreasing whatever abuse is relating to the nodules. So here's our bilateral vocal nodules. You see them on either side there. And let's see if I can point these out on either side. There we are. And when someone tries to phonate with vocal fold nodules, you see something more like this. So the person's able to phonate, right? But in the sustained one, we're going to hear a little more breathy sound. So let's get there. So you're going to hear that breathiness, and we even see when the vocal folds try to adduct, yeah, they're not going to close all the way. Air's going to leak out on either side. And what happens is the person starts to work harder to get that voice production that they had before, because now they get a lot of breathiness. They work harder. The harder they work, the more the vocal folds get aggravated, the hoarser their voice starts to get, breathy and hoarse, and then this gets to be really hard to resolve on its own, even with vocal rest. So we got to try to catch these, get the person to rest, look at a more efficient means of production, and that's how we're going to deal with vocal nodules. Now, I did mention this can happen in children, so here we go. Look at this little cute 5-year-old vocal folds here. And we can still see those nodules. All right. And so as we move through here, you can just see, once again, these vocal folds are never going to quite adduct. And that's vocal fold nodules. And I'm going to stop there.